Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. This is Real Big 10 Football Talk +1 with Chris. This is week 13 of the 2018 college football season and a special week. That is, you guessed it, I have no musical instruments, I apologize. Rivalry week, boys and girls, rivalry week. I am sorry I can't enunciate very well, but you get the point. This is the week when all of those big game rivalry games play. You've got the game with Ohio State and Michigan. You've got the Iron Bowl, Alabama and Auburn. You've got LSU and Texas A&M. You've got the Apple Cup, Washington State. The Civil War, Arizona State, and Oregon State. You've got a host of great rivalry games. And, of course, we can't forget about Florida and Florida State, Clemson and South Carolina. The list goes on and on of great, storied rivalry games that are being played this weekend. But the game we'll be looking at in this particular episode is none other than the game, you guessed it, number 4 Michigan at 10-1, 8-0 in Big Ten play, going to Columbus to face the number 10 ranked Buckeyes of Ohio State, also at 10-1, 7-1 in Big Ten play. This is for the marbles. This is for the Big Ten East title. This is the de facto Big Ten East championship game. Winner of this game does go on to face Northwestern in Indianapolis next weekend to play for the Big Ten championship game. Without further ado, let's talk a little bit about this game. This is a game between two teams that are quite different from a year ago. Michigan was reeling last year. They were on the downslope. They were desperate to find a quarterback, desperate to find leadership on the field. Ohio State was quite good, but lost a head-scratcher game to Iowa, and it knocked them out of the playoff race. But this year is a different year. Ohio State is the team that's reeling, and Michigan is the team that's on the upswing. So what's going to happen in this game? Let's talk about that right now. Starting with who of these two teams played. We have talked about both teams on this show a few times before. I'm not going to elaborate too much on every game, but I will look at certain ones to talk about. Namely, Michigan losing to Notre Dame. It was early in the year. And you've seen how both teams have been. Notre Dame is ranked 3rd in the playoff rankings. Michigan is 4th. You can't say it was a bad loss. In fact, I think it was a very good loss. Michigan played tough. They could have won that game, and they wouldn't have started out flat in the first half. But it was a loss, 24-17 nonetheless. The next week, they crushed Western Michigan, 49-3. SMU, 45-20. I should have made that yellow because they should not have been giving up 20 points to a substandard inferior opponent as SMU was at the time. Nebraska 56-10 dominant victory. Northwestern 20-17, the team they could be playing next week if they win this game. A good win, but questionable because of the way they played in that game, and Northwestern wasn't ranked at the time, but Northwestern has shown us that they can play with the big boys of the Big Ten throughout the year. Maryland 42-21, they give up 21 points to a quite weakened Maryland team. Scoring 42 is impressive, but they did give up 21. Wisconsin, dominant performance, 38-13 in the Big House. In East Lansing, they did beat Michigan State 21-7, a good win, a ranked Michigan State team. And they beat another ranked team the week after that, Penn State 42-7. This Michigan Wolverines team is battle-tested. They played 3 ranked teams back to back to back and beat every last one of them convincingly. And they crushed Rutgers in Piscataway 42-7. But they did struggle against Indiana, as did Ohio State against Maryland last weekend. But I think a lot of people can say, and I think I can agree to an extent, I think both these teams were looking past those opponents at each other. I think that can happen. Both teams won, so it's still, the hype is still there for this game. Who did Ohio State play? They crushed Oregon State 77-31 to start the season, but a yellow win because they give up 31 points to a Beavers team that I believe is 2-3-9 right now. I don't know the record exactly, but I know it's not even at 500. And then they smashed Rutgers 52-3. And then defeated TCU 40-28 in a game they very much struggled in. In fact, if it wouldn't have been for TCU's miscues, Ohio State would have lost that game. I watched that game. I know what I'm talking about. That game, Ohio State could have lost, but they won, so good win. It was a ranked TCU Horned Frogs team at the time. Tulane, 49-6. Impressive, only giving up 6 points to a much weaker opponent. That's domination. Then at Penn State, 27-26. That was, I think it was worse of a loss for Penn State than it was a great victory for Ohio State. But Ohio State was lucky, and they're opportunistic on defense and offense. They took advantage of Penn State's miscues, and they won the game. Good win. But in the end, they struggled 49-26, gave up 26 points against an Indiana team that has struggled putting up points this year. Minnesota, 30-14. Again, could only score 30 points against a team that doesn't have a great defense. And then what do you do after Minnesota? You got smashed by Purdue in West Lafayette, 49-20. Just like last year's Iowa, that was a head-scratcher of a loss. I mean, yeah, you lost. It wouldn't have been by a lot. Okay, it's just you lost focus, whatever. You got blown out by an unranked Purdue team that's actually struggling to get to a bowl game now. They're 5-6. You lost miserably to that Purdue team. You follow up by beating a Nebraska team that has been on the rise as of late, 36-31. Michigan State, an excellent win, 26-6. A great special teams performance by Ohio State's punter. I apologize, I can't remember the young man's name at the moment. And then Maryland last week should have lost, but you beat them 52-51. We're not going to elaborate too much more on these games. Let's get to more of the nitty-gritty of this rivalry. Let's look at Michigan's recent marquee win first, though. And that was that dominant performance against Penn State. What did Michigan do? What did Penn State do? Penn State only got 11 first downs, 18.1% third down efficiency. Michigan gave up to that Penn State offense. 2 for 11, 68 rushing yards, 118 passing yards, 8 of 17 passing. That's under 50%, and still only got 118 yards through the air in the first place. 0 passing touchdowns, 1 interception forced. Michigan only gave up 186 yards to a Penn State team that has done well at moving the football, at least on the ground. And they got less than 100 yards on the ground. Non-factor, Penn State committed 4 penalties for 35 yards. Penn State did commit 3 turnovers also and only had the ball for 22 minutes and 4 seconds. It means Penn State's defense was on the field for 37 minutes and 56 seconds. Dominant performance by Michigan on the defensive side. What did Michigan's offense do? They struggled in a couple of ways. But they did get 20 first downs, 57.1% on third down efficiency. That's 8 of 14, 259 yards on the ground, only 144 yards to the air. But if you're getting 259 yards on the ground, I guess you're doing something right. But you would want Michigan to have had more balance in that game. But Michigan was 11 of 17 on passing, 2 touchdowns, 0 picks thrown, 403 total yards. But, just like Ohio State, as we'll look at in a minute, Michigan struggled with the penalties. 9 penalties for 80 yards. That's a question mark, and that's a red flag. Yes, Michigan only gave up 7 points. Yes, they scored 42. But 9 penalties for 80 yards. That can come back to bite you later on in the year. Maybe it won't bite you in this game. But you'll crush Ohio State. You'll crush Northwestern. When you get to the playoff and you play either Alabama, Clemson, Notre Dame, or maybe some other dark horse candidate that might rise up, that might be a red flag that you may struggle in that game. But looking at Ohio State's recent questionable win, I meant to say marquee because this was a good win over Michigan State. What did Ohio State do on offense? We'll look at that first. They did get 21 first downs, 33.3% on third down. That's 6 of 18. Not bad, not great, but against a quite impressive Michigan State defense. Pretty good. 120 yards on the ground. Again, I can't say raw stats. That's not gaudy. But against a Michigan State defense that was giving up on average less than 100 yards per game on the ground, pretty daggone good. 227 yards through the air. Not great, but decent. 24 of 39 passing. Quite accurate, as always, for Dwayne Haskins. 1 passing touchdown, 0 picks thrown. Not bad. 347 total yards. Again, impressive considering what Michigan State's defense has done. and Ohio State only committed 4 penalties for 30 yards. Quite impressive considering, as we'll see later on, Ohio State averages much higher than that per game on average. Ohio State did commit 1 turnover, which isn't bad considering the opponent they were playing, and they held onto the ball for 37 minutes and 29 seconds. That's dominance. That's keeping Michigan State's defense on the field much longer than they'd like to be. And then what Ohio State's defense do against Michigan State? Michigan State only acquired 12 first downs, 12.5% on third down, 2 of 16. That's dominance. 54 yards on the ground, only 220 through the air, 18 of 48 passing. No touchdowns and 1 interception thrown. Really, the only time Michigan State excelled in the passing game was the short and long-range passes, but they couldn't get the intermediate ones, which is what leads to first downs and keeps drives alive. Michigan State couldn't do that, and that's why they lost, among other reasons. Total yards acquired, and Michigan State had less than 300 yards at 274. That's quite impressive for a Ohio State team that has struggled statistically on defense. And again, non-factor, Michigan State did commit 7 penalties, 46 yards. And they committed 3 turnovers and only had the ball for 22 minutes and 31 seconds. Ohio State's defense is only on the field for 22 minutes and 31 seconds. If they do that consistently, they can win this game against Michigan. Looking at the last 5 meetings last year, Ohio State did beat this Michigan team 31-20 in Ann Arbor. Year before that, took double overtime for Ohio State to come to pull the to get out of Columbus unscathed at 30-27. In 2015, Ohio State smashed a ranked number 10 Michigan team in Ann Arbor 42-13. I'd say some of the seniors on this Michigan team remembers that game. 2014, Ohio State beat Michigan quite handsomely again, 42-28 in Columbus that time. And in 2013, a very close game, 42-41. Ohio State was victorious there as well. You see the trend. Michigan has not beaten Ohio State since 2011. 7 long, grueling years for a storied college, a storied team such as Michigan, with so many great coaches from the past, like Fielding Yost and Lloyd Carr and Bo Schembechler. If Jim Harbaugh wants to be mentioned in that same breath, he's still already an elite coach, don't get me wrong. But if he wants to be an elite Michigan coach, he has to win this game. And I think his team knows that. But looking at the team's offensive efficiency, Michigan's okay at 34 minutes per game time of possession. That's quite impressive. Their offense, they struggle at 429.6 yards per game. That is 46 nationally. On third down, they do well at 50%. That is 9th nationally. Turnover margin, and again, quite impressive at +8. That is 14th nationally. Michigan does do a good job of holding on to the football and converting on third down. But they struggle on getting the home run balls, which is not what Ohio State struggles in. Ohio State, 33 minutes per game on average. So, both teams are pretty even on time of possession. Total offense, Ohio State is quite impressive at 545.8 yards per game. That is 2nd nationally. On third down, Ohio State is also quite impressive at 46.9%. That is 18th nationally. But Ohio State does have a tendency to hit more home run plays than Michigan does. What do I mean by home run plays? I mean big time, long range passes, big runs, stuff like that. That's why I call a home run type play. Michigan has struggled doing that, but they have consistently marched down the field, incrementally converted on third down, which is important. You don't want to live on just the long ball. You want to be able to get the short and intermediate stuff as well to keep your drives alive. That's what Michigan has excelled at, and Ohio State has struggled a little bit. Turnover margin, plus sports, 37th nationally. Not bad, but Ohio State can have a tendency to turn the ball over at bad times during games. Looking at the red zone, both teams have done well at getting inside the 20. Michigan has averaged 4.5 attempts per game. That's 19th nationally. There is something to be said about how many times you get inside the 20. You got to give yourself opportunities. There are teams like Maryland who doesn't get inside the 20 very often, but they take advantage of them and score 100% of the time. But if you don't give yourself consistent opportunities, then it doesn't matter as much as how often you score. based on the percentages. If you don't get in the 20 very often, you're still struggling. Both teams do excellent at getting inside the 20. Ohio State at 4.9 attempts per game, that is 9th nationally. Both teams struggle, though, to score when they get inside the 20. I think both teams do like to gamble a lot. Michigan is only at 58% red zone touchdown percentage. Ohio State, 61.1. Not bad for Ohio State. Michigan, you really want to get above 58 or 59, in my opinion, to at least give yourselves a shot. Red zone scoring percentage, not horrible for Michigan at 86%. That is 52nd nationally. Ohio State, you've got to score something inside the 20 more often. You're at 75.9%. You're averaging just 3/4 of the time you score inside the 20. You're inside the 20. Should be higher than 75%. That's 118th nationally. Excuse me. Passing offense. Ohio State, all green. Michigan struggles in some aspects. For Michigan, 65.1% completion percentage. That is impressive at 23rd. Ranked nationally, but Michigan doesn't throw the ball horribly often, or at least they don't get gaudy numbers through the air. They're only averaging 210.5 yards per game. That is 86th nationally. But they do well to protect Shea Patterson at only allowing 1.4 sacks per game. That is 24th nationally. And Shea Patterson has done well when he has the football in his hands at only throwing 5 picks per game. For Ohio State, quite impressive on all fronts. Completion percentage, 70.1%. That is 3rd nationally. That's behind only Washington State, an air raid team, and Ole Miss, which I didn't really know Ole Miss threw the ball back that much. But impressive nonetheless for Ohio State. Passing per game, 363.5 yards per game. That is also 3rd nationally. It's rare to see that. An accurate quarterback that can get long range and short range and mid range completions can throw the ball on average 30 times per game and still complete 70% of those. That's dominance, and that's why Ohio State has done so well by the play of their quarterback. Sacks allowed, they've only allowed him to be sacked on average 1.5 times this year, or per game this year. That is 28th nationally. And he has also done pretty well at not turning the ball over at 7 interceptions thrown this year. Looking at rushing, Ohio State struggles where Michigan excels in the running game. At 219.2 yards per game on the ground, that is 23rd nationally. Michigan does an excellent job of stopping the run at 111.6 yards per game allowed. That is 14th nationally. Ohio State struggles on both sides of that equation. At 182.4 yards per game on the ground, that's 53rd nationally. Not great, not bad, right in the middle of the pack, honestly, for Ohio State. Same with their running yards allowed, 165.3 yards per game, that is 66th nationally. That is a red flag for me, since they're facing an excellent running style type of team. And Michigan has not only Karon Higdon that can run, they've also got Shea Patterson. So Michigan's got a two-headed beast going up against a team that struggles against the run. Passing defense. Both teams do well at not allowing quarterbacks to be very accurate. Michigan only allowing 47.1% of the passes completed against them. That is 1st nationally. Michigan gets after the quarterback, as does Ohio State. Both teams are at 2.8 sacks per game. That is 22nd nationally. Michigan does get more picks than Ohio State. They have gotten 11 this year for 37th nationally. Passing yards allowed for Michigan, only 123.2 yards per game. That is 1st nationally. Look at the Wisconsin game if you want to get a look at the dominance that Michigan can have against the pass, or the Penn State game. Need I remind my listeners and viewers, Michigan gave up, 127 yards to the air to Penn State. Now, they're not a great passing team, but they gave up less than 100 yards on the ground to them also. This defense is scary for Michigan, okay? It's a scary defense. For Ohio State, what have they done? They have only allowed 52.84% of the passes completed against them. That is 13th nationally. Quite impressive. Again, they have acquired 2.8 sacks per game on average. That is also 22nd nationally. But where Ohio State struggles, they struggle against the raw numbers of defending passing yards. They've only got 7 picks this year. It's 84th nationally. Ohio State has given up, on average, 237.4 yards through the air. It's 77th nationally. Moving forward, yes, that's what I want to look at. The third down percentage allowed per game. My apologies. Michigan has given up or has acquired 16 turnovers this year. That is 67th nationally. Not bad. Total defense, Michigan is dominant at 234.8 yards per game on average given up. That is first by a large margin. Third down percentage allowed per game. Neither team allows third down conversions very often at 31.1% of the time per game for Michigan. That is 11th nationally. For Ohio State, they have acquired more turnovers than Michigan, but they get them mainly on the fumble. At 18 this year, that is 42nd nationally. Total defense. What defense for Ohio State statistically? They are giving up on average 402.6 yards per game. That is 73rd nationally. Third down percentage allowed per game, 30.3%. That is 10th nationally for Ohio State. So what does this tell me? Ohio State gives up a lot of yards on defense, but they only allow 30.3% of the third downs converted against them. So what does that tell me? That tells me, that tells me that Ohio State has the tendency to give up the long ball too much, the home run plays. Whereas Michigan doesn't. Their defense is dominant statistically, and they don't give up many third down conversions. So that means Michigan doesn't give up the long ball, or the short ball, or the intermediate. They don't give up anything. Ohio State gives up the long ball. But Ohio State has done well as of late, not giving up short range and intermediate plays. For scoring, Michigan has done okay on offense, scoring 36.6 points per game. That is 17th nationally. But Michigan does have a tendency to come out of the gate a little bit cold at only scoring 5.5 points per first quarter. That is 77th nationally. But Michigan does turn it up in the fourth quarter at scoring 9.5 points per fourth. That is 19th nationally. But Ohio State does move the ball down the field, and they do score in bunches. Ohio State has scored on average 41.6 points per game. That is 7th nationally. 9.3 points this Ohio State team has scored in the first quarter on average. That is 22nd nationally. Ohio State comes out of the gate hot, and they get out in the fourth quarter hot as well at 12.5 points per fourth quarter scored or played. That is 2nd nationally for Ohio State. Quite impressive. But both teams can score. There's no debate about that. On defense, Ohio State all in yellow, Michigan all in green. Michigan gives up on average 13.5 points per game, but it's 4th nationally. They only give up on average 4.1 points in the first quarter. That is 28th nationally. What do they do in the fourth? They shut the door, only allowing 4.3 points in the fourth. That is 11th nationally. Ohio State, they struggle. They give up more points than they should. At giving up on average 24.6 points per game, that is 46th nationally. First quarter, they give up too many points, 5.3 points per game, that is 42nd nationally. Not horrible, but not great. And the fourth, on average, 5.9 points per game, that is 39th nationally. None of those stats are bad, but they're not great. And they're going up against a very good defense and not a bad offense. Self-imposed errors. Both teams commit far too many penalties. At 7 penalties committed per game for Michigan, that is 95th nationally. They are leaving on average 66.55 yards of just yards in general on the field. But Michigan has only turned the ball over 8 times this year. That is 4th nationally. Michigan does an excellent job of not turning the ball over, as it shows. Ohio State, far too many penalties at 7.82 committed per game. That is 112th nationally. And 69.27 penalty yards per game. Far too many yards you're leaving on the field, Ohio State. And you have turned the ball over 14 times, and that is 39th nationally. Just over 1 turnover per game on average. That's fine, depending on when you turn the ball over that one time. It was late in the fourth. You're down by 6. You're driving. You're inside your opponent's 20, and you turn the ball over. that can be a lot more detrimental. Say we turn the ball over once in the first quarter, maybe it was just a missed assignment or whatever. That can matter. I'll just say that. That can matter. Neat little tidbits. There is quite a bit for this game, as we all know this is a very storied rivalry, especially in the Big Ten Conference. Teams that did play each other for the first time in 1897. Michigan did win that matchup in Ann Arbor, 34-0. Ohio State began this series at 12-1. They tied Michigan at no score in 1900. But Ohio State has dominated this series recently at 7-1-0. The last 8 years. First time Michigan is ranked ahead of Ohio State in this matchup since 2012. But, as those Ohio State fans know and remember, that year Ohio State was banned from rankings, so they were undefeated but unranked. They were banned due to the scandals of the players selling memorabilia or whatever it all was prior to that year. Those Ohio State fans watching, you remember what I'm talking about. Ohio State did win that game 26-21. Michigan does, despite the fact Ohio State's dominance recently. Michigan still holds the advantage in this series all time at 58, 49, and 6 ties. What has both teams done all time? Ohio State's all-time win-loss record, 908 wins, 325 losses, 53 ties. Michigan has played more games at 953 wins, 340 losses, and only 36 ties. Keys to the game. I had to think long and hard. Kept looking at the stats over and over to try to figure out what can each team do to win. I'd say a lot of analysts out there that are outside of the conference, outside of this rivalry, are a fan of neither of these teams, are probably going to pick Michigan, by and large, most of them. So, what does Michigan have to do to prove them right? They have to test Ohio State's vulnerable secondary early with a long pass to open the game. They want to see if Ohio State can keep the ball in front of them. And Michigan needs to use an effective, accurate passing attack to set up your dominant run. When Ohio State starts to get out of the box and they start to get out in the coverage and start playing zone and almost prevent defenses, that's when you open up your playbook for Michigan and run the ball. You have to force Dwayne Haskins to have to pass 40-plus times. You can't allow Ohio State to get anything going on the ground. Shut it down early. Look at the Purdue game. Haskins threw the ball for 70-some times in that game. You have to force something similar for him this time. You have to force Ohio State to be so one-sided they can't even think about running the ball or they lose yards. And for Michigan, you have to win the field position battle. Ohio State has a dominant punter. Must convert on third down. Look at the Michigan State film if you need to remember how dominant Ohio State's punting game was in that game. And for Michigan, you can't give up the long passes. Ohio State does like to test secondaries early in the game themselves. For Ohio State, you have to play smart, play disciplined in the secondary. Don't be fooled by quarterback runs. Stay on your assignments. Stay in your lane if you're in zone. Can't let the guy get behind you if you're playing man-to-man. You have to develop a balanced offensive attack. Don't rely on Haskins to win it with his arm alone. You have to establish your 1-2 combo with Weber and Dobbins early. Stack the box on 3rd and 5s and under. Force Shea Patterson to convert those with his arm. You have to win the field position battle. Shut down Michigan on 3rd down. And you also want to hold on to the ball longer. You want to keep that Michigan defense on the field. You want to demoralize them by getting those 3rd down conversions. You want to consistently march down the field and just break the will of that Michigan defense, which is not easy to do. That's what you have to do if you're Ohio State to win this game. But you have to win the field position battle first and foremost. That is the most important because your offense is good, but you're playing a very good defense. And what happened when your good offense played against a good defense? You struggled, Michigan State. You won that game by winning the field position battle. You have to do it again against a very talented Michigan defense. Who to pick? Who to pick? I am unbiased here. I am objective. I am not a diehard fan of either of these teams. I respect both. I admire what they've done historically, what they've done this year, the type of game teams they are. They're both well coached. I admire both of those coaches very much. Urban Meyer at Florida and Utah, Jim Harbaugh at Stanford and in San Francisco when he coached the 49ers. Both coaches are excellent. Both teams are excellent. It's a great game. I love this rivalry game. But who do I pick? Who do I pick? Rivalry games can be funny. They can be funny because they can pit two teams against each other that you just know the higher ranked team, the team that's, undefeated playing the 1-11 team, for example, is going to crush that team. But yet the 1-11 team somehow stays in the game, and in the fourth, they pull away and they win. I can see that happening in this game. That's why I pick the Buckeyes 17-14. Why? Why do I pick Ohio State? What's wrong with me? Is my brain not working? Do I just not know how to read football? Do I not know the analytics? Chris, you're an idiot. I know what you're all thinking. Why did I pick Ohio State? This is where you're going to laugh. And you're going to call me an idiot until you watch the game. Maybe I'll be wrong. Maybe I won't be. But I think Ohio State's punting is what's going to win this game. Michigan's offense is okay, but it's still not dominant. But their defense is. And Ohio State's offense is. But their defense isn't. I think it's going to be very similar to the Ohio State-Michigan State game. And I think, just like in that game, Ohio State will convert on third downs enough, pin Michigan deep, and Ohio State's defense will play well enough to force Michigan into 3-and-outs and keep that offense on Michigan's side of the field long enough to catch Michigan napping on defense and take advantage of it. It's not going to be a high-scoring affair. Maybe even be lower scoring than what I picked. But I'm picking Ohio State because I think they will win the field position battle. They will demoralize that Michigan defense by holding on to the ball longer and converting on third downs. I think Ohio State has learned from their past mistakes. I think they've learned from the Purdue game. I think last week was a fluke, just like it was in Michigan. I think both teams are looking past Indiana and Maryland towards each other. So I think it's going to be a well-played game like it was in 2016. I think this is going to be an excellent game, but I think Ohio State is going to just edge Michigan 17-14. That is my pick. I do hope you enjoyed the video. I apologize. I'm sure it's a little bit longer than I wanted it to be. But this is such a storied rivalry, I think it's okay if you elaborate a little bit. But thank you for watching. Nonetheless, please like, share, subscribe if you do like my content. Share it with your friends. Let them know what I'm doing here and let them know how good or how bad I am. Either way, it's popularity. Hit that dislike button if you didn't like anything I said here. Maybe you're just a Michigan fan and you just hate my guts because I picked against you. By all means, hit that dislike and tell me how much of an idiot I am in the comments section below. That is what they're for. Or if you think I'm great and I picked the right team and all this, fine. You can brown nose in the comments as well. I don't care. But enjoy the games this weekend nonetheless. And thank you for stopping by. Until next time, guys and gals.